Hello everyone, welcome back to the ULM Dynasty. And we're feeling pretty good, bro. Feeling pretty toasty. Still celebrating from that score you saw right there in the Houston Bowl. We won our first bowl game as head coach of Louisiana Monroe Indians, who also, I think they changed their name. So I don't know if it's tasteless for me to keep calling them the Indians, but I mean unfortunately that's what they are in this game. So I at least try to preserve that level of history. It's not like they weren't called the Indians at some point in their history. So, but they were smart and did change their name. So just I guess I'll make a footnote of that as we move forward. And geez, do you see Georgia just shut out Purdue? 10-3 Purdue. Geez, that was a mismatch. Good lord. So the national championship goes to Miami as they beat Nebraska 24-12. That's just a classic Sugar Bowl right there between Miami and Nebraska. Man, nothing like that is happening in these days, baby. Nothing like that. So take a look at our stats here. Raymond McFarland, in his freshman year, throws for over 2,600 yards. Not really all that great here. 24 touchdowns, though, which is decent, you know. So he is a freshman, so I just hope he just gets a little bit better. Rushing production is just absolutely disgusting. Our fullback leads the team in rushing with 423 yards and only 3 touchdowns. That is horrendous. Jeez. Elijah Spence is our best receiver at 739 yards. God, I'm just choking on my tongue. I've been recording like 6 videos today. I'm just choking on everything. So, pause. Taking a look at our O-line here, we got some solid production from a couple upperclassmen, but then Williams, I think, who was our 4-star that we got in, has 14 pancakes and 2 sacks. So that's pretty good. I like the look of that. So our right outside linebacker, again, is a pretty dominant year, 97 tackles. You like to see that. Leads the team in TFLs and is third in terms of sacks. But our right defensive end leads the team in sacks. He has 6 sacks back-to-back years, but that tackle number is cut in half. So that's pretty gross. Hate to see that. And then our quarterback, number 4, adds another INT from last year. He had 4 last year. He's got 5 this year. So, hey, man, if the numbers are going up, the numbers are going up, all right? That's if I know anything about money, that's a good thing. So, our kicker, number 31, has a pretty disastrous year, but it's good enough to win a bowl game, so guess what? Who cares? I don't. All I know is that we are a bowl-winning coach now for this ULM program, which is, I mean, it means a lot, dude. At this time, I'm trying to pull up the numbers here and see if I can get, now I should have done this before I hit record. I understand, okay, but yeah, I need to get, because that's how I do it with the Northwestern one, is I had the numbers like up with me, like I for reference all their stuff. I kind of got away from it as the history of our Dynasty mode kind of just got so far away from real life, it just didn't matter anymore. Like, oh, you know, after the 4th season of saying like, oh, it's our, you know, like 2nd straight bowl game, and they wouldn't even do that until blah blah blah. Like, yeah, Northwestern's been bad in real life. I don't think you need me to keep drawing the comparisons between our Dynasty mode and the real life Wildcats to get that picture. So once again, we get absolutely zero All-American bids, because why would we? we have a pretty like bad roster all around, so that's nothing too shocking here. But looking at the rankings, we're kind of all over the place. Nothing really all that great. We weren't like a great team, but we were just good enough to win the games that we had to. And that's by the end of things, it's really all you can hang your hat on. It's like, hey, did you win the games you needed to win? Yes, awesome. Take your 7-5 record and your bowl victory and get out of my face and get better. And so that's ultimately the goal that we have for this program, is just to get better in general. So I finally have the numbers that everyone here is looking for, and I think, so looking here, they've never made a bowl game, actually, from what I can see. A bowl game has never been achieved for Louisiana Monroe. That is wild. They've never done it. So I'm discovering this all with you, like on tape right now. That is the nature of this program. They've never won it. So looking over the top 25 polls as we get back to that. So Miami tops things off with Virginia Tech, Texas, and Oklahoma falling behind. Maryland comes in at 5, which is interesting, and Tennessee at 6, which is kind of cool. Nebraska drops all the way to 7th, which is tough. Utah rounds out the top 10. Some weird teams like Louisville and Marshall getting in there. I mean, at this time it's not weird because those are both pretty good teams. Ohio State at 15 with Minnesota and Penn State at 16 and 17. So some Big Ten representation here in the top 20. Ole Miss sneaks into 19. 15 after not being ranked, and so does Clemson. They sneak into the top 25 after not being ranked, as does USC and BYU. So some interesting teams here throwing their hats into the ring late. Middle Tennessee State takes the Sun Belt by just one game, so one game flips differently for us. That trophy's ours, but it's all right. It's only year 2, and the conference is still relatively easy for us to win. It looks like even though North Texas and Lafayette were like right there with us in terms of conference record, but UL Lafayette, the 4 wins that they had in conference were the only ones they had all year. So that's kind of how the Sun Belt is going to shake up weirdly, is you're going to have years like that where like the only wins you have are your conference record, really. So we only play 3 or 4 out of conference games. So yeah, a losing record and a winning conference is on the table. So here's our class that's leaving. Our right outside linebacker, who's been kind of leading the charge defensively, is now leaving. We're losing a lot of key upperclassmen from the first year of the Dynasty. So that's kind of how things are gonna shape up for us. So the team is going to get younger. We're going to need to recruit better. I can't get away with only getting 9 recruits, so we're going to need to recruit a lot better heading into year number 3. Yeah, this is year number 3 now. I already lose track of it. But we're going to take a look at our recruiting class here, and it is significantly better. This time we get 3 4-stars. 2 of them are on the D-line. 1 of them is a receiver. So those are pretty big pickups. We also have a significant amount of 3-stars. The prestige has gone up from winning a bowl game, so we now have a lot more influence when it comes to recruiting. We're going to start being able to steal some recruits from our regional Sunbelt opponents like Lafayette, our big rival. So we're going to get a little bit better. Colorado rounds things out here, recruiting-wise. They're top of in the country in terms of recruiting. LSU, Nebraska, familiar names. Nothing too surprising here as we flip through the top 25 in recruiting class. Miami is at 12 after winning the national title. They drop all the way to 12th in recruiting. A lot of teams who snuck into the top 25 here at the end of year number 2 are also up in here. So nothing too shocking here, but hey, Toledo, that's pretty shocking, right? They have 20 total recruits. That's quite a lot of recruits. So Louisville's going to round out the top 25, and then we move all the way up to 45. So if you remember, we were 105, I think, last year. So we move up 55 spots in recruiting and get kind of in the middle of the pack here, surrounded by not like a ton of great names, not a ton of great schools that like, oh, look at that, we're right next to BYU. Like, nah, it doesn't really matter. But for the Sun Belt, I guess that's maybe that is something I should do, like in future recordings, is keep track of where the rest of the Sun Belt is in terms of recruiting, and maybe show that and like edit around that. I don't know. I don't typically think that's that significant of information that you guys would need, where the Sun Belt is. I think even in this video, I stopped showing the preseason projections for the Sun Belt, because the 1 or 2 times I did that in the Northwestern Dynasty, we had like a completely awful year when it was like, oh, they're going to win the Big Ten, and we finished like 5th, so I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So taking a look at the roster now as we cut some guys. Again, kind of like last year, there's going to be some upperclassmen who are just completely out-recruited, outpaced by our new recruits, so we just really don't have any room for them. Our receiving core is pretty thin this year, so that's going to be something to look out for. Our O-line is getting slightly better, not like too great. Our 4-star from our first recruiting class is in the mid-70s, so he's going to be one of the better players on our team. In general, the team is getting just a little bit better. We got like a lot of like low 70s now to high 60s, so that overall, that median overall in the team is going to start trending slowly upward, slowly but surely it's going to trend towards like the high 60s, which is where it really should be, I guess, for a team like this, year 3 into a rebuild. I guess you could call this a rebuild. I mean, they've never been to a bowl game, and I judging from the scrolling I did, they still have yet to go to one. So we've already become like the Nick Saban of this program already. So McFarland is going to be our starting quarterback yet again. There's going to be a lot of familiar faces, some new ones. Danny Porter, who I think is our new recruit, our freshman receiver, is going to top things off in our receiving core. So look out for him. As we have some new faces all around. Everyone's got names now, so I'm going to try to remember as many as I can off the cuff. I try and just use my resources as I record these to remember as many names as possible. So, but yeah, that's going to be the outlook. So the team is getting a little bit better. Training results were pretty friendly for us. We're going to move some things around, try and get the best roster possible. There's not a ton of movement that we can do. There's not like a ton of great guys, but some people would fit in some better positions. We have some more athletic guys who we might be able to fit around, but our 2 defensive tackles are going to front our defensive attack. Hopefully we can cause some disruption in the Sun Belt, because that's all we're competing against primarily. So if those teams stay in like the low to mid 60s range and we start getting some like mid to high 70s guys, dude, we're going to be a freaking nightmare for those other 6 teams. So, and I really don't think any of them are stepping it up that much. I guess what I was talking about with like showing how they recruit, I guess as long as we don't see any of them in the top 25, I think we're on a pretty good pace. And the only team I think we could is Middle Tennessee, possibly. So here's a look at our schedule. It's a pretty brutal schedule. We got some Power 5 teams snuck in here in our out-of-conference schedule, but some familiar teams as well. I don't mess around with it too much, but maybe I should, because we might need to make this one a little bit easier for us here, we might have our work cut out for us. And if we miss a bowl just because I left on some hard opponents, I'm going to be pretty mad. But at this time, we are just the pup team that gets paid to go get beat up. So maybe after a couple more years, we might not be that anymore, and we can start scheduling some easier opponents for ourselves. We might be the team that can pay smaller teams to come and face us. So we're going to simulate through the season now, through Gear 3, and see how things go for us. Of course, we start off with a bye here in Week 0, essentially is what that is. And then our first game in El Paso playing UTEP, the Miners. Miners, I hardly know her. And we do lose it by 9 points. So a tough loss here to start the season. I thought UTEP was worse than they are, but I guess they're not. And of course, we followed it up with a blowout on the road to LSU, because of course we do. And then the Gamecocks also beat us up in Columbia. So a tough 0-3, and I'm going to get 0-4 start as UCF, the class of the MAC, I think, at this time in college football. They also beat up on us, so we were just getting blown out in 4 straight games to start off our year. Not off to a great start. I mean, this is coach firing levels of bad. We finally get our first win against a winless Arkansas State, which is a conference game. We only win by 1 point, but it's enough. So we finally get a win here, and we followed up with 2 straight wins to Temple and Middle Tennessee State. The Temple win was a 1-possession win, another close one, but we win convincingly against Middle Tennessee State, who won the Sun Belt last year. And then we're continuing our win streak with wins against New Mexico State and Utah State. And so we finally lose a game to North Texas, but our conference record is really holding us down right now, and we might be able to salvage this season if we can win our last couple games here against Lafayette and Idaho, which we do beat UL Lafayette, which is massive. We won our rivalry game, only by a touchdown, but a win is a win. We will take it. And so it all kind of falls down here on Idaho. I think we've already kind of clinched the Sun Belt and a bowl appearance, but just to ensure that, we do secure another winless season for the Idaho Vandals and pick up a 33-6 victory at home, and there you have it. We pick up our second straight Sun Belt, or no, it's our first Sun Belt conference title. We didn't win it last year. It's our first Sun Belt Conference title. We do manage to win it after playing amazing in conference play with our brutal start to the year in our out-of-conference play. We salvaged things out by going 5-1 in conference play and finishing off, I believe, with a 7-5 overall record. So it's also an improvement in terms of our win-loss. I think we finished with a 7-5 record after we beat UAB last year, but that's going to get us a bid to the New Orleans Bowl to play Memphis. So the Memphis Tigers, the 6-5 Memphis Tigers. They only played 11 games. We played 12, so we're a little bit more battle-tested, metal-hardened, but still, this is going to be a tough game for us. We're not a great team, so I'm going to need everyone in New Orleans. This should essentially be a home game for us as we take on Memphis, the Tigers here, in our second straight bowl game.